how to find money. The interest that you're going to pay on inventory finance is tax deductible. As long as you know that your sales are going to be enough to meet the repayment, then you can certainly go in and tap into that type of finance option. Manufacturer finance. This is something that hardly anyone is talking about. So when thinking about getting manufacturer finance, the things you've got to demonstrate would be seller finance is perfect for someone who's just starting out. You don't have to worry about the banks, don't have to worry about credit cards or even your own savings. What does seller finance really look like? It would be perfect if you were buying an existing. I'm Matthew Fraser, and this is Amazon Ecom Secrets. I'll be sharing with you the secrets that helped me go from millions in debt to an 8-figure entrepreneur. If you're ready to escape the 9-to-5 and live life on your terms, let me show you the way. I was shocked the other day when someone said, why do we pay tax if the government prints money? That is a bloody good question. Why do we pay tax? The government's got a printing machine. Just print more money and give it to whoever needs the money, like the welfare system and what have you, right? As a working man in Australia, I don't want to pay tax anymore. It's like these days you can now opt out to like Australia Day. They can opt out. I don't want to be a part of Australia Day, which I think is wrong, but apparently you can do that now. Well, I've had to think about it. I think I want to opt out of the tax system. How about that? What do you think? So speaking about money, let me tell you the top 3 things of how to help start your Amazon business that the banks don't want you to know about. We're going to talk about how to find money. You might think, well, Matt, we know how to find money. We know where it's under rocks and things like that, or we can get money in the lotto. But this question comes up so much with my clients, and it actually becomes a stopping block for them. And I just had a story just recently where a client was, we're looking at products to sell, and in her mind, she said to me, because she was in her mind, she said, Matt, I just don't think I can do that type of product, or I can't sort of progress any further because I just don't have any access to the funds that I think will be required to sort of, buy inventory, right? Buy stock. And I said, get that out of your mind. There's money everywhere on this planet. There's so much money on this planet. You just got to learn how to tap into it, right? Now, if you've got a product that you think is going to be a winning product, then there's always going to be someone or a company that you can tap into to get it. So let me tell you the first way of which to get it, and these 3 ways, of course, the banks don't want you to know about, because they want you to go to the bank to get money because they're going to make interest. The first thing, inventory finance. Now, inventory finance is traditionally done by finance companies, smaller tier finance companies, not big banks. And what they do is they will lend you money just simply based on your stock. So how does that work? You get your invoice from your manufacturer. You'll have predetermined a finance limit from an inventory finance company, and then you'll send through the invoice, and they will literally give you, in generally, up to 80% of the value of that stock. So let's say your stock is valued at $100,000, they'll give you $80,000 towards that stock, and normally you have to pay it off over a generally 3 to maximum 6-month period. So that is something that you don't have to take also security over a house, a car, or anything else. It simply takes security on the stock. And that type of finance, inventory finance, is a way of which I've actually used before. There was times when I was selling my healthcare product, and all of a sudden the sales started to go up like dramatically. So I needed to tap into stock I needed to tap into further funds to buy stock really, really quickly. So I simply contacted the finance company. Now, in the very, very beginning, they had granted me $50,000 limit. But over time, once you've proven yourself at making good repayments, they simply increased that limit. So it got to a point in my journey where they had already pre-financed an approval of like $500,000 that I could just tap into at any time. So as my sales were now going up, especially during the COVID period, my sales were going absolutely mental, get more stock into the system, right? Because if you can't get access to stock, then you can't make sales, right? So and don't forget too, the interest that you're going to pay on inventory finance is tax deductible. So you can write that off anyway. So as long as you know that your sales are going to be enough to meet the repayment, then you can certainly go in and tap into that type of finance option. I think it's actually a winner. This type of inventory finance is probably not something that I would suggest if you're just starting out though, because if you're under my coaching program or my mentorship, I wouldn't be getting you to go into such huge amounts of finance or funds required anyway. We'd start small and test products, which really would mean sort of under the $10,000 mark. We're not talking $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 worth of stock. And that way it's easier to finance yourself, either through something like a credit card or your own personal savings, and not have to worry about tapping into inventory finance for larger sums. That type of funding will be more required if it was something like in my case where I was already selling, but I needed to really leverage up my stock so I could make more sales as things were just going so great. All right, what's number 2 in the list of how to find funds? The funds that the banks don't want you to know about. Number 2 would be manufacturer finance. Now, this is something that hardly anyone is talking about. And this is where you can use your manufacturer to finance the stock for you. Now, how would that work, you ask? Well, you've built up a relationship with your manufacturer. You're now going to use them to provide you the stock at no cost or minimal cost, and then you'll pay them back for the stock much further down the track. Now, that could be anywhere from 30, 60, or 90 days. And that means that you don't have to come up with the money or a lot of the money up front. The stock will be in the system. You'll be able to make those sales and then pay back the manufacturer at a later date. And that could really, really help with your cash flow. So when thinking about getting manufacturer finance, the things you've got to demonstrate would be a great relationship. Let's say you're working with someone who's in China. Chinese are renowned for building relationships. They want you to be a long-term partner to help them and their workers succeed. And you're a part of that journey. So if you've used a particular manufacturer for a year or 2 years, there would be no disincentive for you to go back to that manufacturer now and ask for them to finance the stock on your behalf. And really what they're giving you is credit terms, right? They'll provide the stock for you and you can have it for, 60, 90 days, and then you can pay them back later. Now that all, again, comes back to the relationship. Now, perhaps you've even visited the manufacturer in China. That would be something that would be absolutely beneficial for you to do. But of course, this is going to be something for someone who's been working with the manufacturer for probably at least 1 or 2 years. All right, number 3 of funding ways that banks don't want you to know about, and that would be seller finance. Now, seller finance is perfect for someone who's just starting out. You've got no history of selling online whatsoever, and you can tap into seller finance, which means you don't have to worry about the banks, you don't have to worry about credit cards or even potentially your own savings. And what does seller finance really look like? It would be perfect if you were buying an existing Amazon FBA business, or any type of online business. And it's where you take on the business and the seller allows you to pay back them over a period of time, which would also include an interest component. And this means that you don't have to come up with the finance up front. So it gives you the opportunity to get into this business early, no money down, potentially, and then pay back the seller at a later date. And this could be a win for the seller because they now get to sell it, and a win for you because you don't have to come up with the money up front. Really, really great for people just starting out. So guys, I've just given you 3 ways that you can tap into to get finance for a range of different things, from inventory finance to manufacturer finance to seller finance. But what are the things that you should absolutely avoid at all costs? The number one thing that you should absolutely avoid when it comes to financing your inventory for Amazon or buying an Amazon business is going into a partnership with a family or friend. That could be absolutely catastrophic. So let me tell you a story that didn't turn out so well. And a client of mine had invented this product, and other people in the family thought it was amazing. So they came rushing in wanting to be a part of this. And they were offering, it was $150,000 for 50% of the business. Now remember, this product and business hadn't launched yet. It was in idea phase. My client had already spoken to an accountant and a solicitor at the time, and they'd done some numbers, and the possibility for this product to go big was absolutely massive. This product could go global and be in everybody's home. It could ultimately, think of this, it could be ultimately a 10, 20, it could be a $50 million business. So the family members are thinking, hey, there's money to be had here. We'll try and offer my client $150,000, 50%. Now at the time, my client actually did need some money. So he did think about actually selling half the business for $150,000, which would have been a terrible idea. But he was ultimately able to tap into his own finance through his own mortgage broker. And then this would be another option for people to consider, was he tapped into his home equity. His home equity became the funding mechanism for his product. And ultimately what happened was the family members got very, very disgruntled, very, very upset. And let's just say it caused some tensions within the family because they were now cut out altogether. And what they should have done was take the very first offer which was on the table, which I didn't tell you, which was $150,000 for 25%. Never get greedy because it can always backfire on you. I think when people are starting something new, they're thinking they want to start with somebody else because they think they need to do it together. I think when I first started, I was probably thinking that, because I think you're thinking about it's going to be a little bit de-risking by having somebody else to bounce ideas off. And ultimately, my suggestion would be not to do a partnership. That would be my number one suggestion. I'm not saying that partnerships can't work or they can't be great, but from my experience, I think it's better to take on all the risk yourself. And certainly in my case, I would prefer to take on all the risk myself, take on all the responsibility, and not be accountable to somebody else on your own Amazon Ecom journey. And certainly when you're thinking about partnerships, I would encourage you to speak to either an accountant, a solicitor, or your mentor. That's one of the things that I provide in my service when I'm talking to my clients is they get to come to me and bounce these types of partnership ideas. And I always go deeper into what it means for the client. That's ultimately what my interest is getting the right deal for my client. Because you got to be careful too. Even if you go and speak to an accountant or solicitor, they might have a bias vested interest. It could happen. So just certainly keep your wits about you. So when thinking about funding either your inventory or a new business, certainly if you go to a bank, they're going to want to take equity over something, right? So you'll go to them and say, look, I've found this business to buy. It might be $200,000. They're going to want to say, hey, well, do you own a house? And now in Australia, a lot of people at the moment have a lot of equity in the house. Now it could be an option for you because you're going to get a cheap rate compared to standalone non-secured finance. The rates could be under 10%, whereas unsecured standalone finance might be over 10%. But you're also putting your house on the line. So just think about that. Putting your house on the line, is it worth a startup business? I would dare say probably not, particularly if you're inexperienced in this space. But if you've got a lot of experience and you've got runs on the board with selling things online, then certainly tapping into home equity finance is an option for you. So certainly I've given you some of the top options that I think are worthwhile considering, especially the ones that the banks don't want you to know about. But if you want some further options to consider with finding money to finance your inventory or buying an Amazon business, or if you want me to simply have a look at your specific case, because as you can imagine, all these types of funding options come at a case-by-case basis. It's not just, can I tap into the money? It's also, do I have the stomach to withstand, large types of lending? Because it can be quite stressful. If you want more about funding and would like to speak to me directly, please come to my free community. You'll find the link in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you there, and take care. Thanks for tuning into Amazon Ecom Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your support is to give a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. You can also find more at I'm Matthew Fraser on all social media platforms.